Everybody, and welcome to this seminar for today. We are so excited to have Dr. Prabhakaran, who's joining us. He's currently a program director in the Human-Centered Computing Program of the IIS Division of CISE, the CISE Directorate of the National Science Foundation. He's also involved with National AI Research Institute, Future of Work, Smart and Connected Health, Secure and Trustworthy Computing, as well as other programs such as Fairness in AI. Dr. Prabhakaran is also a professor in the Faculty of Computer Science Department, University of Texas at Dallas. Dr. Karan, we are so excited. The floor is yours. Please go ahead.
Okay, I will try sharing my screen now. Can you?
Yes, I can see your screen.
Wonderful. Okay, so my suggestion, I mean, we are all used to Zoom now or whatever team or Zoom, Teams or Zoom, but it's kind of a little bit difficult to monitor the chat window and do the talking. So please feel free to stop at me at any point in time you feel like, if I'm not clear or if I'm going too fast or too slow. Please feel free to use the audio channel and talk to me. Now, okay, just give me 1 second. Okay. Okay, so first of all, thanks, Joseph, for the invitation, and it's a great pleasure to meet all of you over Zoom. I was telling Sundaresh that it would have been a great occasion if I can come down to your campus, see the campus, and meet you in person. But hopefully, it can happen sometime in near future, right? So I'm going to give a broad overview of different funding programs. I should be honest with you, as a PI, as a faculty myself, when I attended these talks, it was a little bit disappointing because we can only talk about what is public, right? So it was like, and as a PI, as a faculty, it was like, well, I mean, I know these things, right? I'm not getting anything out of the talk, right? So I think what you get out of the talk is by asking questions and making me answer your questions, and that way you can get a little bit more out of my talk, right? So this is just for people who don't know about the Computer Science Directorate organization. So if you can visualize NSF being an university, because we cover like almost all areas of STEM and a little bit of humanities and education and things like that, right? An equivalent of School of Engineering would be may not be School of Engineering, but Department of Computer Science of School of Computer Science would be the Computer Science Directorate. And we have 4 divisions, and you can see them over here. And I belong to the last one, that is Information and Intelligence Systems Division, right? I'm not going to read through all of them. They are basically from the public website, but as part of IIS, we deal with intelligent systems and what it means to be intelligent and how it can be useful for humans, right? So in this talk, I would be primarily focusing on IIS, but I would start with an overview of Computer Science Directorate. This gives you a broad feel for the Computer Science Directorate as such. And you can see that on the right-hand side, right, greater than 85% of federally funded academic computer science research in US is supported by NSF. That's really a large percentage, right? I mean, if you just imagine a world without NSF for computer science researchers in US, right, that would be really, really horrible, right? So, and it also shows the importance of the directorate, importance of the different research programs that are offered by the directorate, right? This is kind of a dense slide, but I'm just putting it up to show that the breadth and the depth of the various programs that are various funding opportunities that are part of CISE, right? So we participate in other kind of like a cross-cutting things, right? It spreads across multiple directorates. And there are multiple directorate programs that are led by computer science Directorate and education programs, entrepreneurship and translation, big ideas and solicitations, and some programs that are specifically targeted for infrastructure, some programs that are specifically targeted for education, right? So if you have questions, I can definitely try talking about those programs, but I would stick to those programs that come out of IIS and primarily programs I'm involved in, right? So that I can represent those programs in a fair and honest manner, right? So this OAC stands for Office of Advanced Cyber Infrastructure. I'm talking a little bit about them because there are opportunities for researchers in computer science, researchers involving IIS type of research to get funded from OAC, right? So that is the Office of Cyber Infrastructure, Advanced Cyber Infrastructure. They provide support for hardware, provide support for software, provide to build the necessary infrastructure that is needed by universities to be in the cutting edge of research and education, right? In this context, one of the important programs is the CCRI, which stands for CISE, Community Research Infrastructure. And this is primarily targeted towards community research, not just limited to university research. So what that means is it should be somewhat like, spread across the country, right? More than one university should be typically be involved. And it doesn't mean that it is hardware. It could be infrastructure in terms of data sets. It could be infrastructure in terms of a test bed that is both hardware and software and generating data. But the primary thing is that multiple researchers outside the university should also be interested in using it and in using those infrastructure, right? That's why it's called a community research infrastructure. Again, feel free to stop me at any point in time if you would have a question. I would try to keep my talking low to a shorter period. I know Joseph suggested 45 minutes of talking. I would rather talk for a shorter time and then have more Q&A from you. The next focus is about IIS division itself. Remember, Computer Science Directorate has 4 divisions, right? So that's kind of like how we are organized, right? And the IIS division has what are called clusters, 3 clusters, right? So robust intelligence, or RI, information integration and informatics, or III, and human-centered computing, or HCC, right? And HCC is the program is my home program. That's where I belong to, right? So HCC used to be called Cyber Human Systems. We just renamed ourselves. It's not a new program. It's a old name. We changed to Cyber Human Systems, and now we are back to human-centered computing, right? And you can see, I'm not reading it out aloud, but you can see what are the topics that go with these clusters, right? So now, as I said, these are called core programs, right? The 3 clusters, right? And we participate in a bunch of cross-cutting programs, which means, it's either with other divisions or other directorates or foundation-wide, right? Now, the core program on robust intelligence, right? It tries to address the computational understanding as well as the modeling of intelligence in complex and realistic contexts. So in some sense, you can consider this addressing the theory and the knowledge that goes with answering the question, what is intelligence, and how can you realize it in a machine, right? So you can say in a kind of like a machine intelligence, right? It's character, these are the expectations, it's supposed to be using real world data in real time, right? And demonstrate a level of intelligence and adaptability seen in humans and animals, right? So, it's going at that level. I mean, we are not there yet, but that's the aim, right? To be as intelligent as a human, to make the machine as intelligent as a human, right? And you can see what are the research topics that are, in focus for that. So this is the next cluster is III, Information Integration and Informatics. And again, this is the core program. The idea is that data is out there everywhere, right? So how can you excuse me, integrate data and transform this data into knowledge or extract knowledge from this data, right? So that's the high level mission, right? So it targets big data, it targets database aspects, advances in database aspects, query languages, new kinds of visualization, right? That needs to happen. And obviously, you know, more and more artificial intelligence, machine learning components are coming into this big data visualization and other things, right? The third one is my core program, right? Human-centered computing, right? So human-centered computing, as you can see from the first word, right? It targets humans, right? So it looks at all the technology, it looks at all the developments from the point of view of humans, right? What is in it for a human? And that could be one human, it could be two, right? Two persons interacting, it could be multiple persons interacting, it could be groups, it could be multiple groups communicating, right? So what is the technology? What is the role of technology? What is the role of intelligence when you talk about like machine learning algorithms? How does it influence humans, right? And we also support one chunk of our research support is for computer graphics, is for adaptive technologies like exoskeleton, prosthetic devices, right? So it's really a broad spectrum of research that is supported by human-centered computing program. All right. And again, if you have any questions, please feel free to stop me at any point in time and ask me. Okay. Now, the career program is NSF Foundation wide program, NSF wide program. It's targeting early career faculty, careers, right? Typically in the first few years after their tenure track appointment, right? Now it supports for the projects are supposed to be 5-year duration, typically greater than 400,000. IIS typically supports around 500,000, 550,000. That's the approximate budget. Okay. And I'd be happy to talk more about career for young faculty. These are some of the statistics over here. It started in 1996, and nearly 7,000 career awards have been made. And some of the career awards, after a few years of the research in the career award, they are selected for Presidential Early Career Award in Science PKs, right? So that is, you should have a career award to be considered for a PKs award, right? Now, the eligibility for career is that it should be in a tenure track or equivalent, right? So you need to argue what is equivalent over here, by October 1st, follow in the deadline, right? So if you are applying for 2022, the deadline might be in July, but you should be still be in an assistant professor position by October 1st, right? So that's the implication. And you should be teaching, you should be doing research, you should not have received a previous career award, right? And you have maximum of 3 attempts, right? So that is, if you had made 2 attempts, then you have only 1 more attempt, right? The main difference, one of the important difference between career program and the other core research program is the emphasis on the integration of research and education. So we are really looking at faculty's academic career. Academic career has both research and education as the intertwined components, right? So we see as program directors, as panelists, we ask the panelists to look for evidence that your research that you are proposing to do will help in education goals, and your education goals will help you to recruit students that are more suitable for your research. So it's kind of like a loop, a closed loop system, right? Your research makes the education better, and the education activities in your research, education activities make your research better, right? So now this is a fairly new program. The scope of this program has been varying in the last few years. So it's called CRII, Computing Research Initiative, CRII, right? And people get confused between career and CRII. The way I would say is that if you are working in an university, that is not able to provide you a good startup to get your research started. Like for instance, the university is not able to give you, as a startup package, is not able to give you research assistance, right, or money to buy some equipment that is needed for starting your research. That's the program over here, right? So the requirements for this program are slightly different. It's not like a small career award. Right? It's not like you need to have a CRII award and then you need to apply for a career award. That's not how it is. So CRII targets a different community, career targets a different community. For instance, CRII can be applied to by professors of practice or research professors as well, right? Because they don't typically get a startup package, whereas career, you can, those people cannot apply, right? Now, what do we mean by cross-cutting? The idea of cross-cutting is that it cuts across directorates, right? We don't want the directorates, the computer science directorate, to be a silo compared to an engineering directorate or a social and behavioral economics directorate, because many of the research is going to have an impact, and the research would be better if all those researchers come together, right? So we have several programs where more than one directorate come together. When I say come together, what that means is, each directorate gets a budget, and from their budget, they are going to commit to this cross-cutting program. Hey, I'm going to put $1 million. I'm going to put $2 million, right? And that's how they build the program, right? So they have a stake in that program, and they fund research that is important for their directorates as well as for other directorates, right? Now, when you look at cross-cutting program, you want to keep this in mind, right? There is this, the lower quadrant, which is kind of like a low-hanging fruit. You can do it. It's more like a undergrad project or a master's course project, right? You can work on it for 2 months and come up with a proof of concept, and it can help somebody, right? So we are not really interested in that, right? And in another quadrant, you have a very basic research, right? I mean, so advanced that the impact will be 30 years later, right? And on the rightmost side, it's kind of like it's new. It's a lot of different work. Like the touch screen introduced in smartphones, right? It's a game changer or a disruptive technology, but it's still not research, right? So the upper quadrant, right? That's where most of the cross-cutting research is. That is, it's going to advance basic science, but at the same time there is a lot of impact, right? So high risk, high reward kind of situation, right? So there are several programs in that category. The first one is Smart and Connected Health, and many of you might be knowing this program. I'm going to stop over here, just make a quick audio check. Are you able to? Is my audio clear? Am I going okay?
Yes, Dr. Prabhakaran, we can hear you.
Thank you. Yeah, I just don't want to end up talking to a Zoom black hole.
Yeah, I understand.
Okay, thank you. And Smart and Connected Health is a program that has been run in cooperation with NIH, National Institute of Health, right? So it's not like additional money for health, right? That's not how it is, right? It is complementary to the goals of NIH, right? NIH funds a certain type of research, right? Whereas the Smart and Connected Health program, okay, it still targets science. It still targets engineering, computer science, the basic sciences, STEM areas, right? That should be a key biomedical component, a sensing or whatever is that component that is needed, right? And it fills in research gaps that exist in the science or the technology to support that health problem, right? And it's an interdisciplinary research team coming together to solve this, right? And the innovations could be in fundamental computer science, it could be in engineering, it could be in mathematics, like in statistics or modeling, right? It could be in social, behavioral, and economic sciences, right? So for instance, how people adapt smart devices, monitoring them, or how people adapt to nudges provided through, smartphones or social media, right? So the next one is on AI institutes. And again, I think you should be very aware. You're part of that. Your university is part of that, right? It transforms AI research, right? That's the main idea. So the focus is on AI research, right? But it's AI plus X. AI targeted for something. It could be AI targeted for cybersecurity. It could be AI targeted to help physics researchers, AI targeted to help agriculture, right? So the foundation is AI. The domain that serves as the motivation could be anything, right? And that anything keeps changing from solicitation to solicitation, right? This year we have 6 themes. Last year we had some themes. And next year, hopefully it would continue. And next year we will have a different set of themes, right? So those themes address a particular domain and try to take inspiration from that domain, understand the research problems that need to be solved, and what are the AI advances that need to be made, all right? This is CRCNS program, Collaborative Research in Computational Neuroscience. My colleague Ken Wong is the lead program director for this. So the basic idea is to target computational neuroscience, right? So there's the advances that need to be made in neuroscience, but you are going to have a lot of imaging, a lot of sensing of brain activities, model, and extract data and try to use that data to derive interpretations through modeling, through theoretical hypothesis analysis, and come up with implications for biological and engineered systems. It's a very innovative program. It's collaborative and interdisciplinary. So it combines neuroscience research and typically data science, typically artificial intelligence, machine learning type of research. So this is another fun program, I would say. The fun because you get to do research with kids. You can do research with kindergartners. You can do research with 5th graders or middle schoolers or high schoolers, right? The education could be even for adults, right? Continuous learning or lifelong learning, right? So the research is on learning, right? Teaching and learning. So it's not just on learning, it's on teaching and learning. It used to be called cyber learning. So this is another program that it renamed itself. The people decided to take away that word cyber and come up with a better one. So the acronym is RETL. Okay. My colleagues are Tatiana goes by Tanya. Tanya Korolski is in computer science. Amy is in education and human resources. This is EHR, stands for education and human resources. So this is another example of a program where 2 directorates come together for offering this program. What are the key points? What are the expectations of this? Again, it's highly interdisciplinary, and it has innovations in both learning and computer science. That computer science part could be augmented reality. It could be machine learning. It could be, fancy visualization part of it, or it could be simply like, designing new engaging immersive interfaces, right, on desktop. So it need not be like, having a head-mounted display covering your eyes and, head. That's, not a requirement, right? So it explores future-oriented education and learning. So typically there is a tight collaboration with learning researchers or education researchers. And, that's a target population that could be like 3rd to 5th grade, right? Or middle schoolers, 6th to 8th grade, right? Or, 9th and 10th grade, right? Or high schoolers in general, right? So there is a target population of students, a focus on technology, typically inspired from computer science, with advances in learning, right? So that's in a nutshell, RETL. Okay. Smart and connected communities is another large program. It's a highly interdisciplinary program as well. We have social and behavioral economics, SBE, computer science directorate, engineering directorate, all participating in this program, right? The idea is to target a community, and the community could be, experiencing high floods, flash floods, and how do you handle that, right? Or drought, right? Or digital divide in a community in a particular city, right? So the main target is the community where we are in, right? And how do you provide or how do we leverage on advances in science to help that community, right? So that is going to be an advance in science, the technology that is being used for that community, but that is going to be an impact in the community that is tangible, right? So that's the focus of Smart and Connected Communities. This is a program I'm involved in, Future of Work. FW-HTF stands for Future of Work at the Human Technology Frontier, right? So there's a human and technology, and there is work, right? So that's the three rings. And as you can see, these are interconnected rings. It's not a Venn diagram, right? So you cannot take out a ring because they are all interconnected, right? So the idea is that you have a technology component. Again, the technology component could be augmented reality. It could be machine learning, right? It could be visualization. It could be a new display type of technology like holograms, right? Working in real time. Right, that's having an impact for manufacturing or construction, right? And you target a set of workers that would benefit from this, right? So you'll be targeting one particular set of workers. So we cannot, when I say workers, it has to be very specific. For instance, you cannot say healthcare industry will benefit from this, because we consider healthcare industry to be very broad, right? Is it caregivers? Is it nurses? Is it doctors? Is it surgeon? Is it the operating room that would be enhanced by this technology? You have to be more specific, right? And what is the augmentation in work that is enabled, and how is the technology advanced, right? So those are the three things. I didn't put any explanation for this particular program because this program, the solicitation has expired. We do hope, we are looking forward to this continuing, right? And that's why I didn't put up any extra information, but look out for a solicitation. And typically NSF gives 90 days or 3 months after the solicitation is made public, all right? So this is another program. I'm also involved in this program. It's called FAIR AI, or Fairness in Artificial Intelligence. And this is in collaboration with Amazon. What that means is Amazon puts in, a certain percentage, like 3 million or something like that for this program, right? They are not involved in the selection of the research proposals. They don't sit in panels. They don't evaluate it, right? They simply take NSF recommendation and provide funding for it, right? So that's the collaborative nature of it. It's a very interdisciplinary program. SBE, Social and Behavioral Economics Directorate, is also involved in this program. The idea is that when you are using algorithms to make decisions, right, that could be bias. Where is the bias coming from? We don't know. It could be coming from the data. It could be coming from the annotations that were made by the humans on the data, right? It could be in the algorithm itself, right? So the focus of this program, in some sense, is to identify where that bias is coming from. How do you mitigate that bias, right? How do you design AI and machine learning technologies or algorithms that potentially could be bias-free, that could be fair in their execution, right? It's not an easy task. We understand that, but we have to go towards that, right? So that's the idea of this program. Okay. Cyber physical systems. Again, that's something that might be of great interest for many of you here. The idea is that there is a physical world, right, the physical world, like, traffic, or it could be surgery, it could be construction, right? There is a physical world where actions are happening, right? And then there is a computational world, algorithmic world that could potentially help with the actions that are happening in the physical world, right? And there are humans, right? So this is different from future of work, because in future of work, we are targeting a particular category of worker and work, right? It doesn't mean that we are augmenting, like, for instance, it doesn't mean that they need to have an exoskeleton in future of work, right? Whereas in cyber physical system, we are, expecting something to happen in the physical world because of the algorithms, because of the computation involved, right? So typically that is hardware. It could be IoTs, Internet of Things, it could be haptic devices, it could be anything else, right? And that is going to help in the physical actions, right? So the cyber physical system is again a large program with focus on, transportation, energy, healthcare, critical infrastructure, and it includes a transition to practice option. So what is transition to practice? Basically, the research results are nearly there, but it cannot be directly applied to the particular domain. We need to, work on it to adapt the theoretical concepts, the algorithms, and the devices for a different context, right? So that's what transition to practice mean. All right. So you can see there are several engineering, several NSF directorates as well as other agencies. For instance, DHS stands for Department of Homeland Security. USDA is Department of Agriculture. NIH is also part of this, right? So it's a cross-agency, cross-directorate initiative. All right. Now, in RI, this is 3.0 because, the program was called Foundational Research. Now it's called FRR, Foundation Research in Robotics, or something like that, right? So the idea is to target core robotics, like actuators, controls that go with the robotics, robot development, right? And it accelerates the development and use of ubiquitous core robots. It could be haptic devices too, right? But the goal is to assist humans. But the advances should be in the core robotic technology, right? Now, this is another program I'm involved in. It's called SaTC, Secure and Trustworthy Cyberspace. And you can think about what is security, right? It really spans from hardware to all the way up to password management, right? So it could be in handling malware that comes into your smartphone or laptop, right? Or simply come up with better chip design, better operating system that can handle those malware, right? It could be on password protection, like, what are the best password management strategies to, how do people look at two-factor authentication? How do people look at Duo, right? I don't know whether you are using Duo in your university, right? It's a commercial name, but I'm just, throwing it out as an example, right? It's a large program, $30-40 million program, or maybe more than that, and addresses a wide variety of research problems. The next one, Rings, and again, I'm kind of involved in that program, and it's a fairly new program, and you can see the deadline just expired. But again, there's a possibility for the program to continue. It's on resilient and intelligent next generation systems, right? Targeting next generation would be in both networking as well as the full hardware capability, right? And the technologies that could be enabled could be at the very low level, like designing better antennas, right? Better components, signaling circuitry, right? Or it could be on virtual worlds, merging physical and virtual world, like, augmented reality, mixed reality kind of thing, right? All right. So I'm sorry, I think this is a duplicate slide. I think I moved the slide to elsewhere, forgot to delete it. All right. So I mentioned that Computer Science Directorate, talks about infrastructure, addresses education also, right? We take education seriously because that's our pipeline to research, right? So students have to be educated in computer science for them to help with research in computer science. We recognize that. So we have several education opportunities, graduate research fellowship program, undergrad research experience, REU sites that are typically in summer, where undergrad students work in a cohort environment, right? Again, I can talk more about it if you have any questions on them. Some of you may already be working in some of those funded projects, all right? So BPC, Broadening Participation in Computing, is an initiative. It's not a program by itself, right? The initiative has an aim, and that aim is to involve underrepresented minorities in computing. So who are underrepresented minorities? You can look for the definition in bpcnet.org. Typically, it's gender diversity, it's racial diversity, it's about physical diversity. I mean, physically disabled people being inclusive, right? So the broadening and it could be undergrads, it could be school kids, right? So because if school kids are not exposed to computer science programming, they're not going to come to college for computer science. And if we don't have enough undergrads, then we don't get enough graduates and so on, right? So we realize that it's a full pipeline, right? So broadening participation in computing goes from K to 12 to undergrad to grad school to PhD students. All right. So CS for All is another initiative, right? Computer Science for All, CS for All. It's a partnership between educators, researchers, and computer scientists, right? So there's a tight integration of education component with computer science research. You can imagine there's a conference called Computer, SIG CSE, right? Special interest group on computer science education, right? So some kind of that, right? How do we teach? How do we incorporate computer science education for everyone, right? And again, there is a diversity component here, but the diversity component is more focused on BPC, and this is on general education, computer science education. And I strongly encourage you to look at bpcnet.org to get more information on BPC, and reach out to any of us, any of the program directors, if you have any questions on BPC, right? So NSF values industry partnerships, as a broader impact. Any research proposal that interacts with industry, that talks about potentially creating knowledge, patents, intellectual property that could be commercialized, we value that as a broader impact. We also have specific industry NSF partnership programs like IUCRC, Industry University Research Cooperation Network. We have Convergence Accelerator as a program, right? So there are several programs that involve industry. I mean, SBA or STT or small business, they target small businesses. Those are other programs, right? Now this is, many of you are used to this as experienced researchers and panelists, but this is more for the younger faculty that could be on this call. Okay, what happens after, what happens in NSF, right? As I said, an opportunity is announced, which is a solicitation, right? A program solicitation, like, RINS was a new solicitation, right? When a new opportunity is announced, we give minimum of 90 days for the community to react, right? Because they need to come together, they need to put together a proposal and all that, right? And you submit a proposal by the deadline, we receive the proposal. What happens after that? We try to review and make a funding decision in 6 months, right? And sometimes there are outliers that takes more than 6 months. Okay, the idea is that majority, like 80% of the proposals, will be decided within 6 months. That's what it means. Okay, so what happens in this phase 2? We select reviewer, we collect proposals and put them together in a panel. Okay, those proposals have something similar, right? The applications might be similar, or The research they advance might be similar, right? So there is some similarity based on which they are grouped together, and we form a panel. And for that panel, it's it's an ad hoc panel, because we don't have like this area would be one panel, right? We put them together in an ad hoc manner depending upon the proposals that have been submitted by the community. We select reviewers who have expertise to review the topics in that particular panel. So it is an ad hoc panel. Okay, we construct a panel for each group of proposals, right? And ask them to review. Okay, and we have a panel meeting where the panelists come either physically in person or work virtually over Zoom and discuss the proposals and make a recommendation to the program officer, and the program officer makes a recommendation to the division director, right? And ultimately, it is the division director's decision to fund a proposal. And if the proposal is to be funded, then it takes about a month, right? There is a review, whether we have enough money in the program to fund it, to whether the institution is ready to receive it, or the PI is ready to receive it. For instance, if you have an annual report that is overdue, then you are not eligible to receive funding till you submit that annual report and get it approved, right? So it's an amazing opportunity and time to be a computer science researcher, right? There are a lot of opportunities for doing research. There are a lot of jobs out there for faculty, a lot of jobs out there in industry, right? So if you are interested in getting to know more about what is happening in NSF, please send an email to this mailing list. You will be added to that mailing list, and you can get announcement of programs as they happen, right? Sometimes people are like, oh, I didn't know such a program existed, right? Or find out about that program 1 week before and say, my research could have been a great fit for this program, but I don't have time to complete the proposal, right? So to avoid such situations, if you are on this mailing list, you will get information by email, right? And you will be alerted, right? Wendy Nilsson is my boss. She is the Deputy Division Director for the Information and Intelligence Systems Division. Okay, she is an excellent lady, very responsive in terms of talking to PIs, answering them. If you have any questions, you can email me. I put up my email earlier. I can show it again, or you can email Wendy or any of the other program directors. All right. So I'm going to stop over here and stop sharing so that I can see you when you are asking questions. I hope you have some questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Prabhakaran, for the presentation. At this time, we'll take questions. So if you have a question, you can either type it in the chat box, or you can unmute yourself and ask a question. But I think I'll start the ball rolling by asking a question myself. So with respect to the cyber physical systems, do you fund test beds? Like if the proposal contains a test bed, would you fund it?
Okay, so without knowing the specifics, it's difficult to answer yes or no.
Okay.
But let me give you an example. Okay. If building the test bed by itself does not have any research, right? So you are putting together, you need to buy, you need to integrate them, maybe write some software to get the test bed working. That may not be appropriate for cyber physical system. It might be appropriate for the CRI program that I talked about, CCRI program that I talked about, CISE Computing Research Infrastructure program, right? Where you can build this test bed and say, hey, this test bed will help you do all this fancy research. And because we don't have this test bed, we are not able to do all these fancy research, right? But a word of caution there, as I mentioned, it is a community research infrastructure. It used to be like, okay for institutions to have that infrastructure, but now it's more for the community. What that means is it should be useful for researchers outside your university. So you might have to say, who is interested, like get letters of collaboration from them, letters of interest from them, and how do you make it available? Like, do they need to come in person and use it, or they can, all those logistics.
Okay, got you.
But now if you have a tight research problem, which needs the infrastructure, and you can get it done in 6 months and then go with the research, that could still be an appropriate proposal for CPS.
Okay.
So the standard answer you would get, and sometimes it could be frustrating for you, right? Write a one-page document, like a usual proposal summary, giving a project overview. These are the intellectual merits, these are the broader impacts, and reach out to the program director. Please don't be shy. Please don't hesitate. As a PI, as a faculty, I didn't do that, and I regret it now, because I see how much of help it could be by talking to a program director, right?
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. I'm Dr. Jurwitz. I'm in human factors. You touched on this a little bit about the distinction between the cyber physical world and the future of work. Can you explain that again? Because I've always seen those two, they kind of overlap a little bit, but kind of the distinction between those two areas.
Okay, so it's always a tricky situation. And, if I quote an example, right? Because sometimes people tend to think that, oh, that example is the entire program, right? So don't do that, right? So I'm just using an example. It doesn't mean that the programs are limited to that example, right? So I'm going to pick construction, okay? So let's say, there are heavy, objects to be moved, heavy lifted, and, used for construction, right? Now, even if the person is 100% fit, they can run into injury, they can run into problems, right? So imagine, you have exoskeletons helping them out, right? And there it's a physical device. It's like what's an exoskeleton, right? Like,
Yes.
you wear them on, and it's cyber physical. It could be controlled by an algorithm, and it's helping the human to lift an object, right? But what is the catch here? It's helping one human. Maybe it's helping 10 workers. It's studying how 10 workers are getting better. It's not a community, right? Now, the cyber physical system, you are targeting transportation. How do you reduce traffic? How do you design a new traffic system? Where if there is no car, the only car that is coming on the road is not made to stop in the red light for 5 minutes, right? So it's for that kind of application where the potential impact would be for a broader society, right? But now again, it's not a cut and dry or a clear black and white border across programs, between programs. Okay, smart and connected communities, cyber physical system, future of work, human-centered computing program, right? We support exoskeletons research, prosthetic device research, but we have different intent, right? So please talk to the program directors. Sometimes, you tweak it a bit here, you would be more successful in one program compared to another program, right?
Yeah.
So that's why it's important to talk to people.
Yeah, that was my follow-up question, is if we do have an idea that could, it may fit in one area, but it may fit in another. I guess that would be the best approach, is just doing a kind of one pager to send to
right,
the program director.
And in many cases, many of us are involved in multiple programs. So, if you come to me and I would say, hey, this seems to be more appropriate for future of work, right? And one of my colleagues might be involved in smart and connected communities, and he or she may say, hey, you might succeed better in smart and connected communities, right? But it doesn't mean that you should reach out to only one program director or one program director, right? I mean, several people are involved in a program, right? But what we appreciate is that you being upfront, so that we don't waste time, right? So you can say, hey, I reached out to future of work, but I'm not sure whether it's a fit, so I would like to check on smart and connected communities. We appreciate that, right? So that we don't break our heads and send you off. Like, no, you should go to smart and connected communities, and that's a better program for you, right? So
right.
Yeah, because it's more about minimizing the thinking time for the program director, right? So we take all your emails, we take all your questions seriously, but we need to think about it too, right, before answering. So yeah.
Perfect. And then my last question was, as a junior faculty, it would be really beneficial for us to serve on panels and get involved in the review process. What is the best way for us as junior faculty to get involved in that process? Is it you? Is it Wendy? Who's the best person to reach out to?
First of all, thank you for bringing it up. I wanted to put it in my slide, but somehow I forgot about it, right? I mean, please volunteer for panels, and that's the best way to understand. You would see that it's not, people are not choosing proposals for awards in a random manner. It's not a lottery. And there's a lot of thinking, there's a lot of discussion going behind it. It might look like a lottery when you receive your reviews, right? But it is not. How do you serve on panels? That's $1 million question. There is no one answer to it. The reason is very simple. I don't know whether I haven't seen that rule in print, but I'm told that we are not supposed to maintain database because it means that people will be just reusing those reviewers, and it can prevent other new people coming in getting the experience. So sometimes people get frustrated because you email people, you don't get selected for being in a panel, right? So it also depends on your expertise and the expertise that is needed for a particular panel. Because remember, I told you it's an ad hoc panel. It depends on the submitted proposals, what research they want to do, what expertise is needed for reviewing them, and what expertise you have. So if you have a match, definitely the probability is higher. Of course, I have to remember, oh, you asked for it, right? So it doesn't hurt to email multiple faculty, but if you really look at the program pages, there's typically a group email. For instance, human-centered computing program has one email address that could be used to reach out to multiple program directors involved in that program. So my suggestion would be to use that kind of like an email alias to reach out, right? To maximize your probability. And feel free to email to other programs because human factors is important for smart and connected communities. Mm-hmm. It's important for future of work, right? So feel free to email. And typically, programs like Smart and Connected Health, we do a panelist survey. That would be actually from Wendy. Wendy would send out a panelist survey. Please fill it out. All right. Because that provides an Excel sheet for us, and many of us would be looking at it. Hey, I need an expertise on this, and if you had said that, then typically people say what they are interested in, but we also look whether you have done research in that. So typically I would go, if you tell me that I'm a human factor person, right, I will go into your website, I will go into your Google Scholar to see what are the papers that you have published. And I'm not saying that that's a good paper or that's not my intent, right? I mean, I'm looking at the topics in which you have been doing research and whether that expertise is needed for my panel.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you.
So keep your website updated, publish, and make Google be aware of it, and Google Scholar picking up your research, then we will be calling on you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Quick question. Thank you for the great talk. How much affiliation of a faculty or PI matters to reviewers and NSF in general? I know that it's not mentioned clearly as merit review criteria in the PAPG document, but I think in terms of qualifications, it might be important to maybe reviewers. Just curious, how is that a determining factor in NSF programs for reviewers and the program director?
So let me try to make sure I understand your question correctly. Are you talking about the criteria, the expertise of the panelists or the PI?
No, I mean, for example, I'm in industrial engineering department. If I submit a proposal to CISE, which is mostly focused on computation, I'm assuming that most panelists are going to be from that background. I'm just curious how much.
Oh, as a
my
PI, so you are
affiliation with
asking,
IE, yeah.
yeah. So you're asking this the PI's background,
Yeah, yes,
right?
yeah.
The PI's affiliation. That's a very good question. Thanks for asking it. And if you look at human-centered computing, it's a public information, right? You can go into NSF award database and look what is funded under human-centered computing program, right? You will be surprised. The PIs are from mechanical engineering, they are from biomedical engineering, electrical engineering, industrial engineering, right? And in fact, you might even find that it's not majority computer science. Okay, the reason is very obvious. We support human-centered research, which like industrial engineering is about, right? I mean, that's my understanding of industrial engineering, right? So it's not about just the technology, but how it's adopted, how workers are looking at it, how you can make it better, right? So if anything that can make life of humans better, right, that is human-centered computing. But if you go to RI, robust intelligence, right, that could be more computational specific. So we don't look at affiliation, we look at the publication track record. And that's why I was answering the earlier question, right? We look at your latest publications in Google Scholar as a program director. But remember, we go with the panel recommendation. So the panelists will be looking at like, hey, you're talking about new machine learning algorithm. Have you published in machine learning conferences, right? It's not about your affiliation. It's about where your publication is.
Makes sense. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. Again, talk to a program director if you have a question, right? Do you think it's not about your affiliation, it's about your research? And when you talk to them, you can ask that question too. Do you think I'm a good fit for this, right? So,
Dr. Prabhakaran, thanks for your time. This is Baski here. I have a question that's, I think, in along similar line of thought as what Farzad had asked. I'm specifically interested in the III program. My work involves graph algorithms, combinatorial optimization, and I have a colleague who is also on the Zoom call here who's a bioinformatician. So we have joint projects in computational biology. So some of these things span the spectrum from algorithm development all the way to the creation of tools bioinformaticians can use. So on the surface, it looked to me like the III program is a fit because it focuses on advanced analytics and the full spectrum, as they call it, from the, algorithm development all the way to tool, from data collection to tool development and deployment. So my question is, along what Farzad had asked, is it an IE and a bioinformatician, would we form a strong enough team for a program like III, or is having a CS or an MIS person necessity?
So, I hope you're not disappointed with the same answer coming out, right? We really need to look at the research proposal, right? Not the entire proposal, but one-page document, like giving an overview, intellectual merit, and broader impact. And I really encourage you to talk to Sylvia Spengler. She is the coordinator for the III cluster. And again, you have an email alias that would go to all the program directors involved too. But if you're worried about, am I eligible for submitting to it? Of course you are eligible. And, you would find that some of the program directors have similar background. They have, they're working in math, they're working in modeling, they're working in, biomedical information, modeling and things like that. So bioinformatics. So definitely, you should, talk to III colleagues, and I'm sure they would be very responsive. And again, please feel free to volunteer for panels in III. Okay, that would be a great help for you to understand how III proposals are looked at by the community, right? So, and of course, you being invited for the panel depends on whether the expertise matches, right? But there's no harm in volunteering. So when you reach out to Sylvia, include both one-page summary of your research as well as a short CV and highlight or a research statement that would highlight what your expertise are and volunteer for a panel too.
Thank you. And I apologize for the weather radio going off in the background. Thank you.
No, I'm not hearing it. I think your microphone is
doing a good job. Thank you.
So Dr. Prabhakaran, just a comment, not so much a question. First of all, thank you for an excellent presentation. I think you outlined all the different programs that you have. And I think, given the nature of our department, there's probably many areas that our faculty can apply. And so I think, having this contact and knowing, how to vet your initial ideas with the program director before they write a 15-page proposal only to find out that it's not a fit. So all of that was very helpful. But I just wanted to mention that just our own department, we've hired, I think, 12 faculty in the last 6 years. So all of them at the assistant professor level in different areas. You saw Joseph and Katie there in the human factors, and we have people in optimization. We also have 2 career award. Farzad is one of them, and so is Austin. But in the optimization area, in the data analytics area. So I think a lot of what you said or what your program covers could be areas of fit for many of our faculty. So I think this has been, I'm just kind of putting myself in their shoes as a new assistant professors and in search of where the right fit might be. So this talk was very helpful. So thank you for that. I really appreciate it. And like I said earlier, if you had come here, I know it was kind of a hard trip to make from Washington, but it's a beautiful campus, but I hope we'll be able to come another time.
So you'll be surprised. I'm close by. I'm in Texas.
That is true, right? Yeah, Dallas.
We're all working from home. The building, we have trouble. It's postponing things, right, because of the pandemic. I mean, we thought we'll be back in the building in September, and things are getting postponed. And but as I said, even though I'm in Texas, I probably would not have been able to attend in person because of the various other activities going on. So this is very helpful talking to you. So my main message is don't be shy, don't hesitate. Okay. As we tell students in class, right, no question is a dumb question, right? And that applies to us as adults, right? That there's nothing like a dumb proposal or a dumb research idea. The only thing dumb would be to what Sundaresh said, right? Put in all the efforts to write a 15-page proposal, wait for 6 months, and then hear that it is dumb, right? So that would be the sad part of thing, right? So don't hesitate. I cannot think of one colleague who is not willing to talk to a faculty. We all love talking to faculty, and that's the fun part of the job. This job, right? Talking to you about your research, helping you with your research, and especially, for me, the best compliment I get is a PI sending an email to me saying that, hey, we got this award thanks to you for the conversation, that we had, right? So remember, we don't do the research for you. We just point out how, this is not the direction. Maybe you should go to that program. You should, maybe avoid doing this because there will be a lot of criticism on privacy or ethics, right? Because, people are like, we have all these sensors. Let's track humans 24/7. We will use it for, we will do that. We will do this, right? Without worrying about what would be the harmful effects and things like that. Especially that's a mistake young faculty do, right? They think, that's great technology. Let's put it into use for this purpose without worrying about the side effects, right? So again, I cannot repeat, enough times. Reach out to us, so on panels, and get help. That's all part of our job.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Prabhakaran. Before you leave, something just crossed my mind. A quick question. My research borders on understanding the neural underpinnings as humans interact with systems. I didn't hear you say anything about that. If I'm able to draft a proposal along human interaction with systems and understanding the neural underpinnings, would that pass?
You know, as human-centered computing, we have supported some, and you can again do a search on the award database. And
Okay.
I'm going to share the screen that talked about computational neuroscience. And if you remember, I shared I talked about this slide, and you know, this is about neural underpinnings, right? But it could be more on it again, you know, this is again, it depends on what it is more about, right? Is it more about neuroscience? Is it more about neural underpinnings, or about human computer interaction, right?
Okay.
Now you may feel like, oh, it's both, right? But there's something that is more like, where will you be published? You know, the best question you could ask is, if you get this award and you do this research, where will you be publishing it? Will you be publishing it in neuroscience conferences, journals, or in HCI, or, you know, CHI, or computer supported cooperative work, or, you know, other type of conferences, right? So look at the intellectual merits, where it is higher. That's probably where the proposal would go. But having said that, internally, I can tell you, we also look at co-funding. Like, for instance, you know, in human-centered computing, when a proposal is ready for an award, right? You know, the panel recommends it, everybody, my colleague likes it, the division director says, yes, you can fund it. You know, what I would do, for instance, I would go to Ken Wang and say, hey, Ken, you know, I have this, you know, top proposal. Oops, let me cut that out, I'm sorry. You know, I will go to Ken Wang and say, hey, this has, you know, neural underpinnings, and, you know, do you have some extra money and you can co-fund this proposal? And, you know, he would take a look at it. And sometimes he would say, yes, Prabha, you are right. I mean, you know, I'm interested, I will put in some money. You are not going to see extra money as a PI, right? It's internal. Okay, so you know, sometimes you may be able to see it, you know, who is supporting it in the awards database. I think you can see which program is supporting it, but you may not care once you get the award. You may not care, but that's what's happening in the back end. So again, talk to Ken if you know, have an idea. Talk to human-centered computing program directors, and we'll be happy to give you a feedback.
All right, thank you. Well, in the absence of further questions, I think this is a very good time to end.
Joseph, if I can give a wrap, you know, one thing, right? When, you know, Sundaresh was talking about in-person visit, right? So typically in an in-person visit, you get more time with the program director. You get more because you know, you don't want to travel for one hour, right? And you know, the reason I'm bringing that up is because the PIs can talk about their research. You know, many times people hesitate to talk about their research ideas, right? So again, please don't hesitate. I know it's, you know, the Zoom is not a convenient, public Zoom is not a convenient, you know, location for you to talk about your individual research. Feel free to ask for an appointment by sending a one-pager. Just don't send an email. Don't send an email saying that, hey, I have an idea. Can I talk to you about it? And typically, this is the answer you would get. No, work on that idea, send us a one-pager, then we will talk. Because we don't want to do your research, right? We are not supposed to influence your research. We can guide it where it is going off the track, but we cannot tell you what you should be doing. That's not appropriate, right? Yep. So please don't send an email. Hey, can you give me an appointment? I want to talk to you about my research. Instead, say, this is my research. I have attached an one-pager. Please tell me if I can talk to you. In many cases, I might just respond by email. And in some cases, I would say, yes, maybe it's a good thing to talk over Zoom, you know, then we will go from there.
Okay, appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Okay, so again, as I said, in the absence of questions, Dr. Prabhakaran already sent his email, so you could always send an email anyways if you have a question. But
Hello, Dr. Norma. Can I ask a question?
oh, yeah,
Dr.
sure, you
Prabha?
can. Yes.
Okay. Hello, Dr. Prabha. My name is Prathamesh. I am a student from IM department.
Okay.
I just have a small question, or I am curious about that. As you mentioned in some slide that you can use the AI or machine learning in healthcare department. So can you explain it by giving a small example? Because I used to work in a production department where I seen the persons came from outside. They build the programming in the machine. I saw that the programming we can use in the mechanical department, but I don't have any idea about you can use the AI or the machine learning in healthcare department. So can you explain it by giving a small example?
I got lost in the question. So can you make the question more crisp? I mean, what is your question?
Yeah, sure. My question is, as you mentioned in some previous slides, that we can use the machine learning or the AI in healthcare department. So can you explain by giving a small example how we can use that in the healthcare department?
Okay, so again, healthcare is so broad, right? So one example may not be a good one to cover the entire healthcare, but I can assure you there's tons of machine learning applications being used in healthcare, and that could be to understand opioid craving. I'm just come to my top of my head, and it's like why people are craving for opioids, why, how can you wean them away? What is the trigger point for them, right? To automatically analyze, cancer images, right? The whatever imaging that is used to locate cancerous tissue, right?
Okay.
Or it could be for planning surgeries, right? Brain surgeries are very complex. Path planning, where do you drill, how do you reach the tumor, and path planning, and those are very complex problems, right? And it could be in behavioral side of things, like the opioid thing. It could be like a virtual assistant that is talking to you and helping you to cope up with stress or for suicide prevention, right? Or assistance to overcome that tendency. So it's really a broad spectrum. It could be for nursing, right? It could be for it could be a question answering dialogue thing for the doctor. The doctor may have a question to know what is a drug that should be used, right? And so it could be for searching, right? It could be on the drug database, the doctor searches.
Okay, or it could be related to the communication.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. I got you.
And natural language processing for natural communication, right? To get transcripts from the doctor-patient communication, right? So it's really a wide spectrum, and you can see machine learning is being applied in almost every part of it, and that's the worrisome part of it, right? That's why we talk about fairness in AI, because if you don't have a balanced data set in healthcare, those decisions are not going to be correct, right? So that's why we have all these complementary programs that would feed on to each other.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. So on that note, would on behalf of the department say a very big thank you to Dr. Prabhakaran for taking time off your very busy schedule to present to us this very insightful work. Presentation. We're so grateful, and we wish you a very good rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joseph. Thank you for inviting me, and it's a pleasure talking to all of you. And I hope it was useful, and have a great day yourself.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.